Okay, Saberspark, you've had your fun. Now it's my turn. Hayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig. Di ka pa sisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong dukha. May dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin na daraw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhati pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. I don't know if anyone here has noticed it yet, but I am a bona fide 100% Filipino man. I was born in the Philippines, I grew up there, and I still have fond memories of my time there. Sure, it's smoggy, sure the traffic is unbearable, sure the bodies of water are so contaminated that if you so much as graze them you'll suddenly feel ill, sure the government's full of self-serving fascist dickheads, and sure it's just sprawling with every flavor of nutcase known to man. Actually, when I put it that way, it sounds about like the most awful place to live in. But imperfections aside, I'm proud of where I came from, and I wouldn't dare trade my heritage for anything. A fact about the Philippines that's often taken for granted is that its animation industry is actually one of the faster growing in the world. The country holds a host of animation studios, a lot of which are branches of major corporations from overseas, and the rest being homegrown establishments. Believe it or not, a good bulk of Western animation was outsourced to these studios, a trend that's only grown in prominence since as early as the mid-90s. But that's the thing, the country's animation industry is most known for fueling animation from outside of it. Homegrown animated works are comparably few and far between, despite such artistic excellence. And when was the last time the world saw a homegrown animated work from the Philippines?
It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack.
Right. That piece of shit. On behalf of my country, we're sorry for that. That's alright though, because there's nowhere else to go but up for Filipino animation. For one budding little-known studio, theirs would be a cultural milestone. I see it as one at least. That studio is Rocketsheep Studio, and the milestone in question is the furry adult animated feature-length film Hayop Ka, the Nimfa Dimaano story. Emphasis on adult. Helmed by freelance filmmaker Avid Liongoren and co-produced by fellow independent studio Spring Films, Hayop Ka has made history as the first locally produced Filipino animated work to be picked up for distribution by Netflix. Considering that the film has been in development for the better part of 2 years, this is a moment of triumph. Not everything about the film is triumphant though. It's come under fire from Filipino netizens for embellishing the more contested parts of the country, such as the socioeconomic divide and the debate on pregnancy and abortion, and also for the casting of film veteran Robin Padilla, who's a supporter of the incumbent controversial president, Rodrigo Duterte. Okay, that last point is definitely worth being pissed off about, but I don't think it's very fair to bring the entire film down, all because of one actor, even if he is the Philippines' bad boy, for better or worse. But enough with the needless politicking. Time for the meat and potatoes of things. Hayop Ka takes place in an anthropomorphic animal rendition of Metro Manila and follows the life of one Nimfa Dimaano, a feline perfume sales lady voiced by Angelica Panganiban, and her significant other Roger, a canine janitor voiced by Robin Padilla. Nimfa faces the typical struggles of a working-class Filipino, but nonetheless appears to be perfectly content with where she is. Her life then turns upside down after a chance encounter with upper-class husky entrepreneur Inigo Villanueva, voiced by Sam Milby. From there, it becomes a complicated, messy, and sultry roller coaster for Nimfa, Roger, and Inigo. I feel the need to point out that the title has multiple meanings. Hayop Ka, when directly translated to English, means you animal, with Hayop meaning animal, and the film is even advertised with that translation in some parts of the internet. It's a reference to both the setting full of anthros and the fact that Nimfa is a thirsty bitch. I mean, you can already tell from her name. Plus, have you heard some of her lines?
But Sir, can I play with your sacks, your cojones, your jewels?
And those are spoken in English. Also, please, to all my male furry viewers, or furry viewers in general, don't unzip your pants, as tempting as it definitely is. Furthermore, the literal translation aside, Hayop Ka is actually a derogatory phrase used to express contempt towards another person, along the lines of, "You son of a bitch." This is an allusion to Roger's reaction to Nimfa's unfaithfulness with Inigo, and it's a subtle little nod to the melodrama you'd normally find in soap operas, especially those from the Philippines, or ang tinatawag naming teleserye.
Patawarin mo, Jen. Patawarin mo.
Huwag kang lalapit sa akin! Nakakadiri ka! Malandi! Pok! Ah!
Huwag mo ko tatawagin yan! Ikaw ang masaul pa sa hayop!
To non-Filipino viewers, this is a the more you know sort of revelation, but to us locals, it's nothing new. Judging by the synopsis alone, Hayop Ka is nothing groundbreaking when it comes to storytelling. It's typical soap opera melodrama that's closely tied to Filipino culture, which I suppose explains the stereotype of Filipinos being highly emotional. Here's an unrelated picture of Josie Rizal from Tekken 7 for no apparent reason. At the very least though, the film acknowledges how ridiculous the melodrama can get and plays it up in a way that only works in the animation medium. I do applaud Avid Liongoren for addressing the aforementioned sensitive subject matters, especially given how prevalent they are in the Philippines. Yes, the socioeconomic divide is large. Yes, unplanned and underage pregnancies happen a lot. And the outlawing of abortion ever since the days of Spanish colonization in the 19th century, along with the health risks and criminal penalties that the act inherently comes with, further complicate things. The depiction isn't too nuanced, but it keeps the film's narrative afloat, and it's nonetheless necessary in shedding light on these issues. Regarding the animation, that's one of the film's big selling points. I've seen a fair bit of Rocketsheep's catalog, and their work is breathtaking. It's a gorgeous take on Metro Manila that teems with life at every corner, and a beautiful encapsulation of Filipino culture, from the jeepneys to the motor tricycles to the sari-sari stores or the local sundry stores to even the congested as shit roads. The predominance of warm colors across the movie, namely yellow, orange, and every shade and tint in between, was the right choice in capturing the atmosphere of the tropical nation that is the Philippines. And all while the color range remains wide and diverse enough. Honestly, there's no better palette of colors that could be used here. It's perfect. And the stellar lighting and shading are the exclamation point to a pristine looking film. One aspect about the design that tickled me pink is the film's counterparts to real life objects, like the mall where Nimfa works at being the Mall of Aso, Aso meaning dog, which is a parallel to the real life SM Mall of Asia in the Manila Bay Area, the bottles of San Miguel beer, which in real life is San Miguel, and the mentions of Jollibog, which of course is a nod to prolific Filipino fast food chain Jollibee. Now, is the film a game changer on the narrative side of animated feature films? Is it perfect? No, and no. Quite frankly, I kinda cringed inwardly when I learned that the synopsis is no different from the soap operas I used to watch back then as a kid, mostly due to other family members and our nannies, or aming mga katulong para sa mga kababayang nanonood. I did hope that the film would at least use the animation medium to its advantage and provide a lighthearted jab to the soap opera genre, and Avid Liongoren has admitted to taking inspiration from soap operas as well as late-night radio shows where a charismatic DJ urges listeners to share life stories in exchange for sage-like advice. So for the most part, quota fulfilled, and Mr. Liongoren made it work in the end. As for the decision to make the characters anthros, don't look at me. Mr. Liongoren was the one struck with inspiration. Ask him. Perhaps I could ask him myself if I could get some interview time with him. And before anyone says anything, yes, I know that Netflix is becoming furry haven, thanks in no small part to Agretzko, Beastars, BNA, and now this film. And even more so since it's been dubbed in English by the well-renowned Studiopolis in California. How are the jokes gonna translate from Filipino to English? Well, since English is a second language in the Philippines, I don't see this being that difficult. At least I hope it won't be. Hayop Ka, the Nimfa Dimaano story is a curious little film for lack of a better word. It's an artistic marvel, a feast for the eyes that is but a sample of the potential of Filipino animation. In terms of plot and story, it lampoons soap operas very well, but otherwise it still takes cues from them and doesn't do much to differentiate itself. The part and parcel narrative is not at all backed by some of the more detestable acts by the protagonist, but it is backed by its daring do in spotlighting the uglier sides of life. And thankfully, the film's self-awareness extends to recognizing and calling out said detestable acts. Where the film becomes a milestone is on a transcendental degree. After the reputation-damaging filth that was the Nut Shack, it was going to take a lot of effort to shake off the stench left in its wake. Avid Liongoren has gone on record saying that one of the purposes of this film was to demonstrate that the Filipino animation industry is capable of so much more, that it had its own stories to tell, and could tell them with the same competency as its Western counterparts. And damn did he deliver on that promise. Now I'm more excited than ever to see what my beloved home can put out in the realm of animation. I gladly award Hayop Ka a rock-steady 3.5 out of 5. A sterling output from Avid Liongoren, Rocketsheep Studio, and Spring Films, one that will hopefully lead to even greener pastures in the future. As of now, the film is only available on Netflix's Asia Pacific libraries, unless you're on a VPN. If you choose to watch the film that way, or when it eventually becomes available wherever you live, it'll come in both the original Filipino audio or that English dub I just mentioned. Whether or not it's as authentic an experience as the original Filipino audio remains to be seen, but either way, if it means showing the world what Filipino animation can do, I'm all for it. So I do recommend it. Watch the film, enjoy the film, and support the studios. It means a lot to them, and the industry at large. Until the next video, I am the one and only CR Martin, proudly bidding all of you, mabuhay!